is a digital marketer with over 10 plus years of experience, and she has worked across different sectors including automotive, hospitality, FMCG, and now she works in the beauty sector. So she manages media and direct to commerce for Kerastase India, which is a hair care brand for the L'Oreal portfolio. She's also a content creator and runs her own YouTube channel around travel and lifestyle with over 2 lakh plus subscribers. And she also has a YouTube channel dedicated to digital marketing. She also teaches digital marketers on Upgrad, and she's also trying to build a community of digital marketers on LinkedIn. So thank you so much, Tishya, for taking out the time and coming here today for the insightful sessions and guidance that we get from you. Would give it over to you to please add on to something if you want to.
Yeah, sure, sure. So just a quick question. Can the attendees, can they kind of like say hi or put questions in the chat just so that we know that they're with us? Can they use the chat functionality, or is that only
Yes.
for us? Okay, they can.
No. Yeah.
Okay, so hi everyone. If you're here, please do drop in a hi in the chat so that we know that you're with us. And I'm very excited to do the session with you. So like you already heard, I've been in digital for over 10 years now, and I kind of started my career in digital where digital marketing basically meant like having your own Twitter account, and Amazon had just come into India 2014. Snapchat had kind of started picking up. TikTok didn't even exist at that time, right? So it was really the nascent stage of digital marketing. Too well now, a lot of businesses are very digital focused. So for example, for Keristas India, I manage the direct to commerce, which is Keristas in, and manage the entire end, right? So it's been a journey from there to here, and I'm excited to share some of that with you and answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, so Isha, let's start with your journey briefly about how you started your career and how you decided to make a career in marketing. What went through your mind during that time?
Yeah, sure. So I think the career in marketing aspect for me was very clear from a very young age, right? I was just someone who grew up loving watching ads. Like even as a child, I remember I would never let my parents skip ads on TV. And those like telemarketing channels that used to run like years ago on television. So I still love watching them, and I should be like, oh, what are they selling? Like who might be like, what are they doing? So like just advertising kind of always was something which was very interesting to me. So I think I decided very early in life that I want to sort of do my MBA and move into marketing. And so I did my undergrad from Delhi University, and I directly as a fresher went to SIBM. And the reason as I chose to go as a fresher was because honestly, back in 2014, when I passed out, there weren't a lot of jobs in digital directly, right? It was a very niche field. It was sort of up and coming. And the only jobs available were in agencies. Brands did not hire undergrad students, unlike today. So I felt like it made sense for me to immediately do my MBA. Now obviously that if I had to sort of redo that decision now in 2024, I might have had a different approach. Maybe I would have worked for a year or two at an agency before doing my MBA. So because the sort of the field has changed so much in the last 10 years. Yeah, so that's when I sort of did my MBA in marketing. And I think it's the important thing for everyone to sort of understand is that digital is a subset of marketing, right? So don't think that I want to build my career in digital marketing. Don't think that in 2024, okay? That's just not how it works anymore. The reality is that marketing has many things, right? When you're building a brand, you're figuring out the voice of your consumer, who's your target audience, and then you are using digital as one of the channels to reach your consumers with the right message. So you have to think of yourself as a marketer. And then obviously in digital now there are multiple specializations that you can choose and sort of focus on one of them and build your career. But it's very important that you think of yourself as a marketer first, that you need to understand your consumers, that stays at the heart of what we have to do, right? And I'll just spend like the next 5 minutes talking to you a little bit about the like I would say the parts of digital marketing, okay? Because that's also something that's evolved. So one thing that has really come up is media. Okay, so what is media? Media is when you are, when you see ads on your Instagram or you see an ad on Google, these are run through the Google and Meta backends, right? So the Meta backend, the Facebook backend that we as marketers see is called Facebook Business Manager. Similarly, Google has a Google Ads Manager. And so our job as marketers is to, as digital marketers, is to figure out, we do something called media planning, right? Which is, there are about 400 million people on Instagram in just India, on, Instagram, Facebook. But my target audience might be 5, 10, 15, 20 of those, right? 5, 10, 20 million. So how do I find those people? How do I show them the right kind of content? A lot of that is sort of media planning. And media planning is really becoming a very specialized field now. So there are people who are really media experts, who work in performance marketing agencies. So, Group M, so these kind of agencies, they'll start their careers there, and they would be really good at understanding how how bidding and advertising works on, say, a Meta and Google. And how different things play out. So what I mean by that is that you have these weeks where, say, Amazon and Flipkart all have their festival, right? So there'll be that one week where Amazon will be having like a Prime Day, and that Prime week is going on, or Nykaa is having that pink sale, right? So during that week, for other beauty brands, it's almost impossible to advertise because the cost of advertising becomes so expensive. So things like this, what are the different factors which are impacting your costs? That's kind of like what media planning is a little bit about. Do you guys have any specific questions around, around media, or like what someone in media does? Then just please put them in the chat so I can, take them up from there. Okay, so that's a little bit about media planning. The next field which has really boomed is commerce, right? So when I say commerce, there are two parts to it. There is e-commerce, which is your Amazon, Nykaa, Flipkart. There is your quick commerce, which is your Instamart, Blinkit. And then there is obviously your direct commerce, where you have your own brand websites and you sell from those. Now, this field is can you tell us about the leading colleges of MBA in media? Okay, so the thing is, there is no leading college for MBA in media. That's, again, like, I would really urge you not to think of your career in that way. You have to go to, again, digital is a subset of marketing, and a subset of digital is media. So why would you want to go to a college which is great only at media, right? Your objective should be to find a college which is great at marketing, right? So say like a MICA. In fact, all the premier B schools have great marketing programs. Even SIBM has a great marketing program. MICA obviously has one of the best marketing specific programs. So always make that your focus, that at the end of the day you want to become a good marketer, and then all of these are kind of subsets of that. I hope that makes sense. I think Sanjana asked that question. Yeah, so like I said, the other big field sort of coming up and booming is e-com, which is your direct commerce, your indirect commerce on Amazon, and then quick commerce. Now here again, this is a very specialized field because there are 3 or 4 elements to this, right? Number one, there is media planning. So even on Amazon, right, you see when you go and search, like if you search for shampoos, you will see an ad of, say, L'Oreal Professional, or one of the other shampoo brands. So this is media buying, where you're showing your ad to the right consumers when they're searching for you. But then there's also like inventory management, which is deciding, okay, at this point I need to make sure this much stock is there, I need to have stock on all the platforms. And so you work very closely with supply chain to make sure that you have inventory on all platforms at all times. So that's a little bit of that. And then the third big element on this is promotions, right? So deciding, say, when the pink sale happens on Nykaa, what kind of a promotion should I be running, versus business as usual where there's no promotion, what kind of inventory should I be buying? So there's a lot of promo planning that happens. So it's kind of a mix. And then obviously there is a lot of creative elements. How should my banner look? So there's that sort of creative aspect of it. So e-com really has come up as its own niche, I would say. And the interesting thing about e-com is that it's driving revenue, right? And that's what I love about digital today in 2024, is that digital is no longer a support function, right? It is a function which drives actual business, and where you get new consumers, you get revenue. And so therefore digital marketers are finally getting a seat at that table, just because sort of contributing to the business. There's another question: how can I revise what I learned and brush up my concepts on digital marketing? So, I'm very sure all of you might have done like a free Google course or like a Google Ads Manager course or a meta learning course. The reality is that all of these things keep changing very quickly. So if you're not practicing them, it's very, very hard. So obviously make sure that you're constantly reading. You can, there are like Social Media Examiner, Ads Week, etc. There are a lot of like places where there are a lot of resources available online. There are a lot of reports that come out, but the reality is to actually understand what's happening, how is the back end changing, what are the new things happening. You kind of have to either volunteer your time and work at a startup. That for me has been kind of like something I did in the beginning of my career, where on the side, like I would sometimes consult and just work with new brands who might need like one resource to support them. They give you a small budget of 4,000-5,000 rupees a month, but it's okay because it keeps you going, right? The thing with the digital and all of these platforms is they evolve so quickly that you really have to be there and understanding what's happening and how it's changing to really stay updated. Yeah. So just read a lot, and then, like I said, if you can volunteer with a startup, etc., that was your best chance. Yeah. Okay. So I see some questions in the Q&A section also. Do FMCGs companies like HUL shortlist based on profile, just like consulting? Yeah. So I mean, again, a lot of premium companies like say HUL, P&G, L'Oreal, they only hire from premium B schools. So they would hire from the top, say 10, at max 15 B schools. And they also do shortlist your profiles based on, different things that matter. Now, it depends on what are they hiring for, right? If they're hiring for sales, very often they prefer freshers. If they're hiring for more of a brand role, then they might prefer someone who's come with a little bit of work experience in marketing. So yes, very similar to consulting, they have different criteria to hire over there. There's another one which says, as I've come across saying that if I choose digital, my job doesn't directly start in digital. I need to work for some time and get the specific role as a digital marketer. Okay, so again, the most beautiful thing about marketing is there is no right or wrong career, right? Like say 20 years ago, there used to be this thing where Pele used to become a ASM in the field, and then you used to come to a region and do sales, and only then could you become a brand marketer. Today, that's not the case. Many people start their career directly in brand marketing. Same for digital. There are many people who start in brand marketing, move to digital. There are people who start in an agency and then move to a brand. So there's really no right or wrong way to start your career in digital. And there are many people, like for example, me, I have my whole life only worked in digital, right? I from my first job, my focus was always digital media. So I mean, all of those career trajectories are absolutely possible. There's another FMCG question which I already answered. What are some of the best colleges for placements in brand management and marketing? I kind of answered that. Micah has, but again, it's important to remember that all the big FMCG companies, say a lot of the other big marketers, right? Okay, so take a step back and think about who is spending money on marketing, right? That's always important for us to remember. So the reason that marketers want to work for FMCG is because in FMCG, marketing is really the core of what we do, right? When you go to a DMart and you see a shelf where there are like 20 soaps lined, why do you choose one soap over the other? Because you've seen an ad, because of word of mouth, because of that top of mind recall, right? So in FMCG, brand building is at the core of what we do. It's really how we build consumer trials. So that is why marketers are so keen to work on FMCG. Similarly, you take electronics, right? Even automobile. In these industries also, marketing has a much more important role than I would say banking, maybe, where banking is more based on the finance and based on the kind of features they have, etc. Marketing might not be as important as say a consumer good company. Not that it's not important in a bank, but it may not have the same level of importance as in a consumer good company. So it's important for you to think about those sectors, and honestly, a lot of these big sectors typically do end up going to those same 10-15 premium B schools, which are your IIMs. SP Jain has some really good placements placements for marketing. Mica, of course, is the number one. NM also has a lot of great marketing placements. Yeah, same for SIBM also. We have SIBM has a lot of marketing companies coming there. So yeah, these are some of the tops. How does one switch to digital? So when you're switching to digital, there are like 2 or 3 ways that you do it. One is that you kind of, if you're already in a very big company, you try and get a move internally. If you are absolutely fresh, you may not be immediately hired by a brand. So I would suggest you work for, say, 2 years in an agency and then move there. Yes, you can do courses. The problem today is, from a course, getting a placement is not as easy. It is much easier for post a full-time 2-year MBA program. But yeah, of course, there are some great courses that Upgrad runs online, and NMIMS has their own digital marketing program. But the reality is that post an MBA, it is the placements are much better versus doing just a 4 or 5 month program. The different levers in digital marketing, right? So we spoke about commerce, which is your D2Cs and e-commerce. We spoke about media, and the third pillar, which in fact someone's asked also, is really content. So the creative side, right? So all these beautiful ads you see, that is again a specialized field now where people work on content creation. And again, you could be doing this on the brand side. You could also be working at a production house and specializing in digital content. So that's sort of another. The fourth pillar is technology, right? So today, one big part of digital is really leveraging technology. So what do I mean when I say that? So say something like CRM. Okay, so what is CRM? It's all these emailers and WhatsApps, etc., that we get from brands, right? So you would have seen now brands have advertised to you on WhatsApp. If you go to your Gmail, and there's a section called promotions where you see all these emails from different companies. Now the thing is that all of this, there is a science behind this, right? It's not random. Like the beautiful notifications that Swiggy and Zomato and Zepto send us. It is very custom based on the time of the day, your purchase history. So CRM, it requires a lot of analytics, and so that's sort of one big field under analytics. And then data, as we know, is the importance of collecting data and using that data is going up. So that's another part. And then there's obviously building technology, right? So making websites, making apps, that's a sort of a subset called UI UX, which is that when you go onto a website, why is it that when we go to some websites, like when we go on Amazon, it's so quick to shop, right? You search for something, within 3-4 clicks, you've checked out and you're done. Versus when you go, say, to some other website where you're shopping online, you'll be confused, you'll not find things, you'll not find sizes, and it's just a bad experience. And then what happens? You close the website and you're just like, okay, you bounce off that website, right? So this entire field is called user experience, and that's another very specialized field where you really build these beautiful websites and apps which are very intuitive for users, and you use different tools to figure out where are users spending time. And the interesting thing about digital is that it is so actionable. So you have these tools which exist today. For example, there is a tool called Hotjar. Okay, it's a free tool, you can check it out. It does something called heat mapping, which is, it will, you install it on your website and it will show you where are consumers spending time. So the places on the site where they're spending a lot of time becomes like a deep red. So you know that, oh, actually, while this might be my banner, but nobody's looking at my banner, they're looking at this other piece of content on my site. So that's the interesting thing about a career in this, is that whatever insights you have, you can very quickly action them. And the most important thing is you can immediately see results, right? So you contrast this to when you launch a television campaign, right? So what happens when you launch a TV campaign typically is, you build that ad film. It's a 30-seconder. You'll build like a 15-seconder. You'll do your media planning, and then you'll run that ad for, say, 2 to 3 months on different channels, and then you kind of get this report. And then you have to find like other proxies, like, oh, has my search volume gone up? Maybe after 2-3 months, am I seeing an increase in sales? But it's very difficult to do a direct attribution to say that, oh, this consumer, he saw my ad on TV and he kind of immediately purchased, right? So with the coming of connected TV, which are televisions which are connected to the internet, obviously this is also evolving. But like I said, the main USP of digital is the speed at which we can make decisions and immediately action those things. Sorry, I'm just going to take a second and just read just some questions. So there's another question which is, I'm starting marketing from scratch. How can I build a marketing specific profile if I'm currently in my second year of college? Now, honestly, when you are in college and you're trying to build your profile, there are really only 2 or 3 ways to do it, right? One is you do internships. Obviously, your college will provide you an opportunity for, some internships, but the reality is that startups in India are booming today. There are so many startups who, will be happy for you to work with them for short periods of time, so that like you can take up projects. That's where you get a lot of learning experience from. And again, while you're in college, you are not that worried about your final salary, your final placement in that startup itself, right? So even if these are things that you need to do without taking a stipend, beyond your obviously the internship your college is giving you, that's perfectly fine. I would like highly suggest that you do it. That's also something that I did, and it greatly benefited me, especially with the context that I was a fresher, right? So I didn't have any work ex. So even in my final interviews, what I ended up talking about are these, 3, 4 small projects that I had done for these really small local Pune based companies, and what I had learned from there. That's really what I spoke about in my final interviews. So that's one thing. The other thing that you can do really well is LinkedIn. And the thing with LinkedIn is that that platform is extremely powerful even today, uh, versus say like in Instagram, etc., where reach is low. It's difficult to find new audiences. LinkedIn is not like that. Even today, if you have good content, you can really build a niche very quickly over there. And I'll give you a story. I'll tell you a story about someone who, which you might identify with. So there was a student that I mentored who is from a B school. He was, doing his marketing. Now, unfortunately, no FMCG companies came for recruitment to his college. And he was very clear that I just want to work in FMCG. I mean, that was his lifelong dream. And I said, okay, maybe you start your career in whatever and then try and move there. But he was like, no, for my first job, it has to be an FMCG. So one of the things that he did so well was that he started a weekly FMCG newsletter where he would just read the news every week and figure out, these top 4 or 5 trends, some interesting ads, and just kind of make this FMCG newsletter. And the amazing thing is, and I've really witnessed it in 12 months, his newsletter had a base of about 10,000 people, which is crazy, right? Like 10,000 marketers subscribe to this college student who's a fresher, who's never worked in FMCG, but just loved that industry. And then obviously his hard work paid off. And through LinkedIn, he actually found a job, not through his college placements, but one of the smaller Indian FMCG companies reached out to him for a project, which he converted into a final job, right? So never underestimate the power of 2 things. One is like LinkedIn, but also more importantly, the power of discipline and consistency. So never underestimate that. When if you're sure that this is what I want to do, then there are many ways of making that happen, right? You just have to kind of put in the work. So I hope that makes sense. SEO, etc. Which one should we do a job in, or which one is there for us? So Prerak, I'll tell you the best thing. Okay, so the best thing in digital is that in general, even if you are, say, you work in an agency, okay, and you work in media buying, now it's not that you are only doing media buying. You have no idea what is the creative, what is the brand strategy. You have no idea. You're only doing media buying. That rarely happens, right? This is not, digital has not reached that level of evolution where each of these don't speak to each other. So the best thing is that irrespective of where you start, it will take you a year or two to understand where do you want to specialize, right? So you could start your career in SEO, but then eventually you realize that, listen, actually, while I'm doing SEO, my actual passion is content creation. Because when you work on SEO, you will you will work with copywriters in creating blogs and creating videos, and maybe you realize that's where your true passion is. Or you could also when you work in SEO, you'll do what is called off platform SEO, right? Which is you'll work with, say, a Vogue and Elle and all of these magazines to kind of get those articles listed there. so that they can track back to your website. And so maybe you figure out that PR is actually your passion. So the great thing is all of these roles really interact with each other, because at the end of the day, remember the what I started with in the beginning, that this is all a subset of finding your right consumer and sharing your brand messaging with them. It's one channel to do that, and this channel interacts with your commercial team, with your supply chain, with finance. So really you'll have you'll have exposure to different things. So don't be too worried about like, oh, what if I start my job in SEO and then like I'll never be able to go out of that. I mean, that rarely happens. You will have that flexibility. So if you do not have if you've never done digital or marketing before, the best course of action is, in my opinion, still doing an MBA. You can do these smaller 5-6 month courses. Some of them do have guaranteed placements, but if you are someone who's looking for, if you're worried about the kind of remuneration, then I would really suggest that you do a full-time MBA rather than a short course. Having said that, the other thing that you can also explore is, if you're already working, look for a role within your organization. Today organizations are very open to people kind of moving between roles, so that's something that you can also explore. And then obviously Coursera and YouTube and Google and Facebook, all of them have free courses which are a great taking off point. It's great for you to learn. The problem is that knowledge is a little bit theoretical, right? So till you don't implement it, it's tough to really understand the implication of it's very easy to Google and go on Google and read what is the difference between an exact match and a broad match keyword. But the reality is, till you don't make a search plan, you will never truly understand why each of these is important, and what should be your search strategy. So to kind of find a good job, I am still someone who believes that an MBA has great value in what you learn. Also the kind of network that you build, and if you're from a premium B school, the kind of companies that come there and the opportunities they offer, that still is extremely valuable in my opinion. So yeah, that's what I would say. Any other question that you can see, or would you like to move to another question?
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, there's
Tishya.
no. We'll just take that. I'm curious about your MBA interview prep. What strategies did you find useful? Yeah, I mean that's absolutely a very relevant question. So, in terms of my MBA interview prep, there were the broadly 2 or 3 things that I did. One was that I was very clear that I wanted to be in marketing, so I kind of focused a lot on just reading. To be honest, I read a lot about like what was happening in the industry. I read a lot of books, and of course, in any B school interview prep, it's really important that you are updated with what's happening. And it's not just that you're updated, you have a point of view, right? That's also important for you to have that POV. So the one thing that really worked for me was, when I was prepping for my MBA, I had like this group of 2-3 of us who had the same coach. We used to go to the same coaching center, and then in the evening we used to just sit and discuss potential questions, and give each other feedback. And with you guys, look, you have a lot more technology, right? You have Chat GPT, which is great to kind of put in your answer and ask Chat GPT to reword it for you. At that time, we only had like peer support. Honestly, you have a lot more technology. There are some great AI tools where you can actually do interview prep with the AI, and all of this is free, right? Like that's the thing. So all you need is to like go on there, spend some time. But the thing that really worked for me and continues to work for me even after 10 years is reading, and like I said, having my own opinion on things. Yeah.
Sure, Tisha. Thanks for all the wonderful, insightful things that you have shared with us till now. I'm sure it is very helpful. There are a few more questions, so I'll start with that. One question is particularly along rural
Yeah.
management and rural marketing. So there's somebody who has done their MBA in rural management and
Yes,
working in
yes.
the Big Four auditing firm, and they want to switch.
Yeah.
What would you like to suggest to them?
Yeah, so a very interesting thing. So one of my closest friends actually worked in rural marketing for 4 years, and then surprisingly, today she works at Google, which is really if I can say, like one of the the best companies to work when it comes to digital, and they're really at the forefront of everything happening. So I can tell you a little bit about the things that she did to sort of make that switch. So she had already got 3-4 years of work ex. So she did at that point did not, and she'd already done her MBA from a really good B school. So she did a few courses just to kind of appraise herself with like what's happening, and then she started applying for jobs. So at that point, her knowledge was still, I would say, quite theoretical, but at least she was aware of what are the different things. The other thing she did is that in the company that she worked, they had a small digital marketing team. So she just started like informally collaborating with them a little bit, just to understand what are they doing, to just understand also how that lever is working in rural, right? Because even one of the companies I worked with is Mahindra, and if you know Mahindra, you know that the thing that they're most known for is their tractor business, right? Which is essentially rural. But that doesn't mean digital plays no roles, because even there, maybe you're not talking to the farmer directly, but maybe you're talking to the farmer's children online, and giving them tips and tricks. Maybe you're talking to the dealers. So there is a role of digital in sort of in that aspect also. So that's something that she really worked on understanding. She kind of gave a lot of ideas in her company of how digital can be leveraged, and she worked on a few projects on the side with her regular job. So I think about it took her almost 6 months of prep time, from doing those courses, doing some projects internally, just understanding, speaking to people on what are they doing, what are different types of digital jobs, and then she started applying, and within her first shot she cracked Google. So I would always say, nothing is impossible when you sort of just have a clear course of action, and you put in that effort to make it happen. So it's not at all shocking to move from rural marketing to digital. Like I've given you a live example of something just that happened 3-4 years ago. Yeah.
Sure, thanks a lot. There are some other questions on what books or resources would you suggest to somebody who just wants to learn marketing and get a flavor of it?
Sure. So, the if you want to look at books, like, so there are, I'll tell you some of my favorite books, right? So, there is Ogilvy on advertising, which kind of talks about how, and Ogilvy is one of the biggest advertising companies in the world. So, and it's like an evolution of their beautiful ads, which is like one of my favorite books to, sometimes just open and like read a page out of. And then there are a lot of new age books which kind of mix behavioral economics with marketing, the 22 immutable laws of marketing. The book I'm currently reading is called Predictably Irrational, which is also very similar. It's a mix of behavioral economics with sort of marketing principles. So there are a lot of books in this genre which are easily available for you to read. But these are three that I would suggest that you start with. And one, like, honest confession is that I personally love Kotler. Kotler is something that you study when you go to B school. It's like the best, like one of the best books to have all the marketing principles. So that's anyway going to be a course book. But I remember that I kind of got my first Kotler even before I went to B school, and that's something that even after so many years I still have with me, because the reality is that fundamental concepts really don't change, right? So if you think about it, these concepts of your awareness, interest, desire, and action, this model is from the 1980s of how the consumer moves to decide a brand. You first become aware, then you become interested, then you desire it, and then you finally purchase the brand. So even today, when you advertise on Meta, on the Facebook ecosystem, it's the same thing. You have awareness, consideration, and purchase as the three sort of big objectives you can choose, which is pretty much the IDA model, right? So none of these models are, a lot of these models are very, very relevant today. The only thing is the speed to market. Because of digital, the speed of feedback has completely changed. But yeah, those are some of mine. And then, like I mentioned, Social Media Examiner, they have a great podcast also, which you can listen to. Freakonomics has a great podcast. Freakonomics, the book, also is really, really interesting to read. So there's a lot of Seth Godin books, Purple Cow, etc., which are great reads. And Seth Godin also runs a very nice blog. He talks a lot about sort of marketing, SEO, etc. Neil Patel has like a lot of SEO specific content. So yeah, there are a lot of options for you to choose from.
Thanks, Tishya, for mentioning the vast options. So there are a few other questions. So one question is from somebody who is in college currently and has decided to pursue their MBA, but does not have work experience, has a few
Right.
certifications related to digital marketing. So do you
Yeah.
think with this gap year impact seeking admission for MBA?
So honestly, I think doing your MBA after a gap year is not shocking in India. It's something that a lot of people do. A lot of people after their undergrad take a year off to prepare for the MBA. In the side, they do some courses. They might have an internship, etc. So as long as you are very clear why you took that time off, and can justify that in your interview, which I think you kind of have already said, right? It's you took that time to study, to prep. You did a few courses on the side. I'm sure you've done a few other things. You read and upskilled yourself. So I don't see why that is going to be a problem. I think it's very important that, number one, don't be apologetic about taking that time off. If you needed that time to prep and upskill yourself, it's great that you did it. So own that in your interviews. And like, I mean, you are already on the right track because you spend that time preparing and also doing other stuff on the side. So that's amazing. So yeah, that I don't see why that should be a problem.
Yeah, thanks, Tisha. So there was another question that we had, which is, who are your favorite pioneers in this field? Who are your role models and why?
Yeah, so I think already I mentioned some of them in terms of the people who the whose blogs and content I read. Kakkad, one more Pandey. There is a book called Pandemonium, which is really about, so which is like one of my favorite books about a lot of the classic ads in India, like the Cadbury ad, the Asian Paints Har Kuch Kehta Hai, which by the way is going to make a comeback this year, where Asian Paints has decided to bring that campaign back in exactly the same voice and exactly the same audio, and a revised film. Actually, not even the film. Even the film is going to be the same, right? So there like a lot of these classic Indian ads, which I love. Fevicol has been like one of my favorite brands. So a lot of these, I would say, a lot of these people who worked in advertising, I really enjoy reading about their thought process. And lately, I have been reading more about people from, who have been in behavioral economics and figuring out how that really interacts with digital. So books like Freakonomics and things like that, I have found very interesting. But I think, to be very honest, my biggest role models are people I found at work. They have been just, like my managers and people who I've worked with who've been really passionate about, who've really taught me brand building, and who've taught me how, like, from the very scratch of how you think about a brand, how do you personify it, how do you give it a voice, how do you build a consumer persona, how do you find the which channel to leverage for which consumer. So a lot of these are just people who I found at work, who I've actually learned a lot from.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tina, for mentioning that. So, another question that we had is, what kind of challenges do you face in your entire career of marketing, and what is something that, if you were to redo in a better way, so what are some mistakes that somebody should avoid in early stages of career?
Yeah, sure. So I think, just I'll start with the challenges questions. I mean, you might have heard this whole myth about, like, it's not a myth, but, sort of the sales versus marketing aspect of it, right? Where both of these roles kind of have, as marketers, you want to do like a lot of big picture thinking, a lot of brand building, but at the end of the day, you need to drive a monthly number. And there needs to be that monthly quota, which every brand in the world has, and you have to kind of meet that target. So how do you work really well together is something. It's also a challenge for international brands when they come to a country like India, right? Because India is such a different market. I don't think there is any proxy to India, right? Yeah, from the kind of internet penetration we have, how cheap data is. I think it's the cheapest data in the whole world. So irrespective of where you go in India, people are on YouTube, they are watching videos. So it's very different. A lot of the principles that that work in Europe or US, they just fall flat in India because we are not that audience. We're a very different audience. We have luxury consumers here who are price sensitive, which you may never see in a US or a China. So it's a very different market, and that's a challenge when you work for an international company, when when you have to bring a product and which is made for a specific TG, but that it's not going to work here. So that's something that you have to be on the watch for. And in terms of things that you would like to learn, that you should do is, I think one thing is just kind of being open to ideas. That's very important. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from, right? Because now I've been working for say about 10, 11 years, and now the workforce is got a lot of younger people, 23, 24 year olds, who are very different, right? Gen Z works in a very different way. I mean, a lot of people here are probably in that sort of age group of 20 to 25. They have very different ideas about what's important to them, what matters to them. There's so much more about sustainability. They want to know brand stories, etc. So it's important for for marketers who've been in this job for a while to be open to that, to be open to a totally different way of marketing, right? Or say when a new channel comes up, like say Snapchat, which is boomed in India. Snapchat is the fastest growing social media platform in India. It's already crossed 100 million users. And so for for someone who comes from say a television marketing, or say even a meta marketing, Snapchat is totally different. It's a totally different beast. So it's important to just kind of evolve and stay updated with what's happening, and figure out that that's very important. In digital, you have to keep learning, otherwise you'll become irrelevant very quickly, right? So think back to the time when TikTok just launched in India. I think it was 2016 or 2017, and everyone was like, "Oh my God, the content here is so cringe. I would never advertise on this channel." But think about what TikTok did. Of course, it's banned today in India, but the reality is this entire, swiping and watching 10, 15 second content. TikTok is what started that. It never existed, this sort of this swiping motion and watching content for 15 seconds. It literally did not exist in the world before that platform. And Instagram Reels really took off because of India, right? Because TikTok was banned, Reels launched a few months after, and that really sort of took over. And today they're as almost as big. They're what really is driving Instagram's growth today. So whenever there's something new, it's very important that you're open to change, because you never know how quickly everything will change, right? Think about like quick commerce. 3 years ago, like there was this concept did not exist. There was nothing where in 5, 6 minutes you could get things delivered to your house. This did not exist. And today, if you speak to CMO, especially in FMCG, or especially companies which have a low ticket item, all their energy is in figuring out how to crack quick commerce. They have whole teams now whose job is to figure out, oh, like how do I make sure that my daily sales on quick commerce are going up. They have teams for this. So it's just changing so fast that you have to really be open to change at all points, I would say.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tia, for mentioning the important point. So there's another question like which we had, which is what is the best piece of advice that you have received so far?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting question. I think like the best piece of advice I've ever received would probably be like from my mom, who always has this quote, which I live by, which is that you may not be the smartest person in the room, but always be the hardest working person in any room, which is kind of like my life mantra, where there'll always be people who know more. But like for me, so it's very important to like show up consistently with a lot of discipline, and like kind of really try and improve myself. So I think that's something that she says, that's something she lives by, and then I also live by.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Tisha. That's beautiful. So, to the participants, I'd like to say, guys, we have the last few minutes remaining, and please feel free to put in if you have any other questions. We'd like to
There's
take them
one
up.
question about does Big Four have digital marketing divisions? So yeah, actually Big Four does have digital marketing divisions. So they do it in two ways. One is that they have their own sort of internal teams, which like all of these companies have their own Instagram handles, they have their own LinkedIn handle. So they do a lot of like brand building, they do a lot of employer branding. So they have like internal comms and digital teams internally to manage that. Second thing is they also do a lot of projects, right? So they would come on board to say to consult companies on different types of things. So imagine you are a conventional company and you want to launch online. So what should be your strategy? How should you do it? They have specific divisions for that. And in fact, companies like Accenture have like a huge sort of tech arm which also help you build websites and mobile apps. They have arms which help you do consumer research, and like, so if you built an app, they'll help you go and test it and say this is what we can improve and enhance. So absolutely, all of these companies, all consulting companies have like a digital, including like your BCG etc., have a digital consulting arm which is very very active. Yeah, so that's definitely the case. I'm just quickly seeing if I missed any question. I think we answered everything.
All right. Yeah. So then, any last thoughts that you would like to share? Any piece of advice you would like to share which has not been covered yet, and then we can close the session.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing is that if you do choose marketing and digital as your career option, it's a very exciting place to be. There's always a lot happening. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of evolution that's happening. So if that's something that you're considering for your career, I mean, like a big thumbs up to that. And just keep reading more. There's so much content available today for you to learn from, and I'm sure it's going to turn out great for all of you. Sorry, just one. I think there's a last question for Malika. Do you think people with etc. have a, yeah? I mean, Malika, don't at all think about what you've done as your undergrad as a benchmark for what you're going to do post your MBA. It's not necessarily related, right? I know there are a lot of people who work in consulting and then in their after their undergrad and then they want to become consultants, and that's a great career trajectory. But I also know doctors who become digital marketers and lawyers who become marketers. So irrespective of your background, I think the question probably if they ask you in the interview of like why do you want to become a marketer, have a very good answer, and don't just have that for your interview. It's also important for you to know this question, the answer to this question, right? Because it's much easier to sort of decide your career trajectory post your MBA than say 10 15, you've been working for 5 10 years and then you want to make a switch. It's a little bit harder. So have that answer of why do I want to be a marketer for yourself, and then you can justify it to absolutely anyone who asks you that in an interview. So yeah, I mean, it's great to have people from diverse backgrounds. Imagine you'll bring such a different perspective to the table.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tishya.
Yeah.
So, in the interest of time, I think we can close the session.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Tishya, for taking out the time today. It's been wonderful having you here. It's a privilege to have you here and share your knowledge, experience, and genuine guidance for the benefit of the participants. And thanks a lot to the participants for asking so many beautiful questions that would help many other people also to learn from this. And the session will go live on YouTube in a few days. So please do check it out on our channel. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks
Thank you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.